Hey friends, welcome to our Midweek Moment. Pastor Nicole, so glad you joined in. Well, this week we started off in a new sermon series called Sabbath 101, How to Create Sacred Space. And I want to talk to you a little bit about Sabbath and how and when we practice it, right? So the Jewish tradition is to celebrate Sabbath from sundown on Friday evening until sundown on Saturday evening. And they started practicing it that way because that's how scripture lays it out, right? So if we look at the creation story, God says it was evening, it was morning the first day. It was evening, it was morning the second day. And so that's when they started practicing Sabbath, would be Friday at sundown until Saturday at sundown. In the Christian tradition, when we think of Sabbath, we usually think of Sundays. And the reason why that is because when Jesus resurrected from the dead, it was Sunday. And so early church communities wanted to honor and remember that Jesus resurrected on a Sunday. And so they moved their worship and kind of their Sabbath celebration to Sundays. So that's why we go to worship on Sundays now. At least most churches have worship services on Sundays. So I wanted to share a little bit about how then do we need to practice Sabbath on Sunday, or do we need to go back to the Jewish practice and practice it on Friday evening? I practice Sabbath on Fridays, just the whole of Friday, because that's what works for my schedule. So Sundays are a work day for me. Saturdays are usually busy with family stuff. So Fridays are a little slower, a little quieter. Now that my kids are older, they are in school, and so I have a little bit of free time. I can hang out with Steve. I can go to a movie. Always take time to connect with God in some way. So that is what works for me. Fridays are my Sabbath day. Now, if you've not ever practiced Sabbath before, if you've kind of fallen out of the practice, you might think, how I just can't imagine my schedule with a 24-hour period to Sabbath. How do I do that? And I think that's a really great question. And I don't think that we need to be legalistic about Sabbath and like follow it, to the letter. Instead, I think we have a little bit of freedom because Jesus kind of teaches us that legalism and the Sabbath don't go together if we read through different stories in the Gospels. So why don't we start building up our Sabbath muscles? Okay, so if you've not practiced Sabbath before, or you just don't think you'd have time for it, maybe start with spending 4 hours or 6 hours in a Sabbath. And then maybe you can work yourself up to 12 hours. And then maybe you can work yourself up to 18. And eventually, maybe you can work yourself up to 24. So sometimes I think we just kind of think, I don't have time for it. I just can't do it. A little bit of Sabbath is better than no Sabbath. So if we can only practice it for half of a day, I think that's good. It's not quite where we want to be, but it's a good start. And so if you can do a half day of Sabbath, go for it. Enjoy it. Experience that. And see how good it makes you feel. And then hopefully, because of the experience, you'll want to try to work that 24-hour period into your life. And I say 24-hour period because sometimes I think we get hung up with like days. Like, I can't do it because I work a half day on Friday morning and then, I just don't have time. So it doesn't have to be from, midnight to midnight. We could work it from noon to noon or 5 p.m. to 5 p.m. or whatever it might be. We can be a little flexible in how we celebrate Sabbath. The important part of Sabbath is just taking the time, right? So if we can get ourselves to that 24-hour period, I really think you're going to find this rest and rejuvenation that your body is just longing for, that your spirit is longing for. So that's kind of the goal. And I think there's different ways for us to get there. We don't have to like drop everything and be like, that's it, I have to start practicing Sabbath right now. We can work ourselves up to it if we need to. So just kind of keep that in mind. as you are working towards your Sabbath practice. If you already practice Sabbath, I would love for you to share in the comments what that has kind of meant to you in your life. Maybe you can share some ideas of what you do on Sabbath so that other people can see, like, it's not just sitting at home, staring at the ceiling. Like, we can do fun things on Sabbath. We can connect with God and we can do fun things to rejuvenate ourselves. And that's going to look different for everybody, and that's okay, which is kind of the cool part about Sabbath. So we're going to continue on this journey for the next several weeks. We hope you will join in, whether in person or online. And I'm excited for us to learn more about this holy practice. So join us. We'll see y'all soon. Bye.